Welcome to EnglishPass Podcast, brought to you from our local studio in Calgary. I'm your host, Samantha, and today we're diving into an exciting topic: getting a performance evaluation. Whether you're a beginner or intermediate learner, in this podcast, we're helping you level up your English listening and reading skills. And before we get started, let me tell you that the sponsor of this episode is TypeFit, keyboard typing practice and learning service. Today, we're exploring something really interesting: getting a performance evaluation. This is a remarkable subject for English learners because it covers a lot of practical vocabulary and real-world situations. So let's dive right in. A performance evaluation, often referred to as a performance review or employee appraisal, is a formal and systematic process where a supervisor or manager assesses an employee's work performance. At its core, the evaluation serves as a bridge between a company's goals and an individual's daily actions. It is a dedicated time for an employer to examine the strengths and weaknesses of a staff member, provide feedback, and set goals for the future. While many people feel nervous about these meetings, they are essential tools for professional growth and organizational success. The process usually involves a sit-down meeting between the manager and the employee, where they discuss specific accomplishments, areas that need improvement, and how the employee's role contributes to the bigger picture of the company's mission. In the modern workplace, this process has evolved significantly from its early beginnings. Historically, performance evaluations can be traced back to the early 20th century, specifically during World War I, when the military used various systems to identify high-performing soldiers for promotion. Later, during the Industrial Era, managers like Frederick Taylor introduced more rigorous ways to measure how fast and efficiently factory workers could complete their tasks. This was often a one-way street where a boss told a worker what they were doing wrong. However, today's evaluations are much more collaborative. Cultural shifts in the workplace have moved the focus away from simple command and control styles to more supportive coaching models. Most companies now view the evaluation as a two-way conversation rather than a lecture. To understand how this works in practice, let us look at several key vocabulary words that appear frequently during these reviews. First is the term appraisal, which is simply another word for the evaluation or the formal document used to record the results. Then there is constructive criticism, which refers to feedback that is specific and aimed at helping someone improve, rather than just pointing out a failure. Another important term is core competencies. These are the specific skills, knowledge, and behaviors that are considered necessary for success in a particular job, like communication skills or technical expertise. Many managers also talk about benchmarks, which are standard points of reference or yardsticks against which performance is measured. Finally, we have the phrase professional development, which involves the training and learning opportunities an employee pursues to improve their skills and advance their career. Let us look at a concrete, real-world example of how a performance evaluation might unfold. Imagine a software developer named Sarah who works for a large technology firm. Once a year, Sarah meets with her manager to review her code quality and her ability to work within a team. Before the meeting, Sarah completes a self-evaluation, which is a document where she reflects on her own achievements. During the actual meeting, her manager points out that while her coding skills are excellent, she sometimes misses deadlines for submitting her documentation. This is constructive criticism. They agree on a goal for the next 6 months. Sarah will attend a time management workshop to help her stay on track. This illustrates how the evaluation identifies a gap and provides a solution to help the employee grow. Another example can be found in the retail industry. Consider a store clerk named Marco who works at a busy clothing shop. His performance evaluation might focus more on his customer service ratings and his ability to handle cash accurately. In this scenario, his manager uses key performance indicators, or KPIs, which are quantifiable measurements used to gauge success. If Marco's sales numbers are 10% higher than his coworkers, his evaluation will likely be very positive. However, if customer feedback mentions that Marco is sometimes impatient, the manager will discuss how to improve his soft skills, such as empathy and active listening. This shows that evaluations are not just about hard numbers. They are also about the human side of the business. Wait, are all evaluations the same? Not at all. One common misconception is that performance reviews only happen once a year. While many companies still use the annual review model, many others are moving toward a continuous feedback system. In this model, managers give small pieces of feedback every week or every month. This prevents surprises at the end of the year. There is also a method called the 360-degree feedback review. In this system, an employee doesn't just receive feedback from their boss. They also receive anonymous feedback from their peers, their subordinates, and even their clients. This provides a full, rounded view of how the person behaves in different professional contexts. Consider a third example: a nurse named Alina working in a busy hospital. In a 360-degree evaluation, Alina's supervisor might comment on her medical knowledge, but her fellow nurses might comment on how helpful she is during an emergency. Even the patients might provide feedback on her bedside manner. This comprehensive approach helps Alina understand that her value is not just in her technical ability to give medicine, but also in how she supports the entire healthcare team. Without this multi-perspective approach, Alina might never know that her colleagues view her as a leader during stressful shifts. There are also psychological factors at play during these evaluations that both managers and employees should be aware of. One such factor is the halo effect. This is a cognitive bias where a manager's overall positive impression of an employee in one area influences their evaluation of the employee in other, unrelated areas. For instance, if a graphic designer named Robert is incredibly friendly and well-liked, his manager might accidentally give him a high score for technical accuracy, even if Robert's work actually contains several typos. On the flip side, there is recency bias, where a manager only remembers what the employee did in the last 2 weeks, rather than looking at the entire year. This is why it is so important for employees to keep a brag sheet or a list of their accomplishments throughout the year, to remind their manager of all the great things they did months ago. In a fourth example, let's look at a freelance marketing consultant named Joanna. You might think freelancers don't get performance evaluations because they don't have a traditional boss. However, Joanna conducts her own client reviews at the end of every project. She asks her clients for a testimonial and specific feedback on what went well and what didn't. This is a form of self-directed performance evaluation. By doing this, Joanna can adjust her prices, improve her communication style, and ensure she stays competitive in the market. It shows that even without a formal human resources department, the principles of evaluation remain the same: reflection, feedback, and adjustment. Fifth, consider a high school teacher named Mr. Thompson. His evaluation is often tied to the academic growth of his students and his classroom management. A principal might sit in the back of the room and observe a lesson. Here, the evaluation is highly observational. The principal looks at how Mr. Thompson engages with students who are struggling and how he encourages participation. Afterward, they sit down to discuss the evidence gathered during the lesson. This highlights that evaluations are often based on direct observation rather than just written reports or data points. What happens if an evaluation is negative? This is a common fear, but a poor review is often a turning point. Many companies use something called a Performance Improvement Plan, or PIP. This is a formal document that outlines exactly what an employee needs to change to keep their job. While it sounds scary, a PIP provides a clear roadmap. For example, an office administrator named David might be told he needs to reduce errors in the company's financial records. The PIP would give him 90 days to show improvement, perhaps with extra training or more frequent check-ins with his supervisor. Sixth, let's look at a sales representative named Sam. Sam is a high achiever, but his performance evaluation reveals that he is very disorganized with his paperwork. His manager recognizes his high sales volume, but explains that his lack of organization is causing problems for the billing department. Instead of just scolding Sam, the manager offers an incentive. If Sam can keep his paperwork organized for 3 months, he will be eligible for a leadership training program. This turns a negative point into a motivational opportunity. It is also interesting to note cultural differences in performance evaluations. In some cultures, feedback is very direct and blunt, while in others, it is delivered more softly to avoid losing face or causing embarrassment. In many Western corporate environments, there is a feedback sandwich approach, where a manager starts with something positive, mentions a negative area for improvement, and ends with another positive note. Understanding these nuances helps employees navigate the conversation without feeling personally attacked. Ultimately, getting a performance evaluation is a vital part of a professional journey. It forces us to stop and think about where we are going and how we can get there faster. By viewing the process as a partnership rather than a trial, employees can use the feedback to gain new skills, earn promotions, and increase their overall job satisfaction. Whether it is a formal annual meeting or a casual monthly check-in, the goal remains the same: to align the individual's growth with the organization's success. It is a moment of clarity in a busy work world, providing the data and the dialogue needed to build a successful career. And that's all for today's episode of EnglishPass Podcast. I hope you found this helpful. Remember to practice what you've learned and don't be afraid to make mistakes. That's how we improve. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe and join us next time. Let me remind you that the sponsor of the episode is TypeFit, and I suggest to check the link at the description. I'm Samantha, and I'm excited to be your host for many more fascinating episodes to come. Until then, keep learning and keep growing. Goodbye.